Travel insurance is not one of the things we like to think about or buy for sure, but as you'll learn in the story that I tell at the beginning of this show, it does come in handy. I've actually had to use it myself, and I know many people that have had to, from having surgeries overseas to stitches to lost luggage. There's lots of different ways that the travel insurance can come in handy for you. And so as we continue the transition of the Adventure Travel Show over to the umbrella of the Active Travel Adventures podcast, today we'll be talking to an expert in travel insurance about some of the things you need to know and think about when you purchase your policy. When you do purchase your policy, I would encourage you to use my comparison link that you can find in the show notes or on the website at activetraveladventures.com. It allows you to look at lots of policies at one time, compare the prices, compare the features to see which is the best one for you. It is an affiliate link, so you will be helping to support this program at no additional cost to you, and you'll help keep this program ad-free. Now with that, let's learn about travel insurance. 6 months before my husband passed away, we were sitting in our office and our desks were right next to each other, and Bill was in remission. And somebody had called me to ask me to do something. This was in November. Asked me if I wanted to do something the following June. And I said, no, I couldn't really plan because I didn't know what Bill's health had been like because his cancer had come back twice already. And so I was just kind of keeping things in limbo. When I hung up, he said, listen, Kit, I'm feeling good right now. Why don't you go take a trip while I'm feeling good? And after a couple of years of medical and the stress of Bill's cancer and just all the drama and the rentals weren't doing that well. And so anyway, I said, that sounds really sweet. I said, I've always wanted to go to Africa. And I knew that would be someplace Bill would never want to go. And he said, well, go if you can find somebody to go with you. So I emailed my girlfriend, Mickey. I said, hey, Mickey, you want to go to Africa and go on a safari? Within 15 minutes, she emails back, yeah, let's go. So here we are in November, and we decided we're going to go on a safari in January. So we end up driving to Washington, D.C. to get our visa because we didn't trust mailing our passport there and getting it back in time in case there's a snafu because the time was so short. Had another story for another day about the snafu that happened on the way to the D.C. But anyway, so we go off on our adventure. We head to Turkey for a few days to kind of recoup a little bit of the jet lag before we head into Tanzania. We land at like 2 o'clock in the morning, as all the flights seem to. We're picked up by our tour company who takes us to this nice little eco lodge that we're supposed to sleep for a couple of hours, get up, have breakfast, and go out in the safari. Everything's great. We got this cute little room. It's got the mosquito netting. It's kind of cute. Nothing fancy, but it's nice. We sleep maybe 2 or 3 hours, get cleaned up. We're walking down this dirt path on the way to where the restaurant area was in the lodge, and it's single file path. And all of a sudden I hear Mickey stumble, and I turn around and she does a face plant and just smushes her face in. So we are in this backwoods area and she's just bleeding and her nose is smushed, and we can't even use the water from the faucets because it's not sterile enough. So we had to use bottled water to try to clean it. And the people at the lodge couldn't have been any nicer, but they just didn't have the medical facilities there. Finally, we get the doctor, and the doctor actually recommended that she be flown to Kenya for treatment. And she's like, no, I just want the stitches. And the doctor does it. Everything's fine, no infection. But he doesn't let her go out into the bush on the safari because of the risk of infection. She'd be too far away from medical care. So she ends up having to spend the entire 5-day safari time at that lodge, which in hindsight turned out to be a good thing for her because A, she ends up making friends and family members out of everybody she meets, and she still keeps up with all those folks this many years later. But B, it turns out also that she gets car sick and 70-something years old, needs to use the restroom a lot. Not a good combination when you're in a Jeep and a safari bumbling around on rocky, rutted roads. So anyway, it ended up being a blessing, and thank God that she bought the travel insurance. Even though it took a while to get all the paperwork and all that, eventually she was reimbursed for the expenses. So today we're going to be talking about travel insurance, and I've got an expert on travel insurance and travel safety with us from World Nomads, and we're going to learn all the ins and outs of travel insurance, what to look out for, what you should be looking for, and without further ado, let's get started. Welcome to the Adventure Travel Show podcast. I'm your host, Kit Parks. Today we're chatting with Phil Sylvester from World Nomads. So Phil is a travel safety expert for world nomads out of Australia, and he's here today to answer all of our questions about travel insurance. Phil, welcome to the program.
Thanks very much for having me.
I know people are going to think travel insurance sounds kind of dry, so let's get people off with a good start, and let's tell them some fun stories to show them this is going to be a fun show. Tell me your favorite happy ending travel insurance story.
Oh, we have so many. Oh, okay, here's one. There was a Florida guy, and he was doing base jumping in Switzerland, would you believe? And ended up hanging on a rock ledge quite a way off the ground and was quite badly injured. He got rescued and we got him back home to Florida. And because of his head injury, it had to be a low altitude flight. You can't just put them on a regular, commercial plane. But we got him home and he made a full recovery. So, that was very expensive for us, but it was a great outcome for him. The downside of it is we don't cover base jumping anymore.
And one reason I should note, the reason I switched to World Nomads from my previous carrier is because I cover adventure travel and I didn't realize that a lot of the things I was doing wasn't covered under regular policies.
Yeah. Look, we've got, I think it's about over 100, nearly 200 adventure activities that we will cover. And generally they're ones that are not covered by other people as well. But, there are certain things that we don't cover, like if you wingsuit flying, or as we like to call it, plummeting, it's not going to be covered. It's too risky.
Oh, I've seen video of that. Yeah, no, that's pretty cool. It's crazy. We don't cover anything. The bar is set, so I've got to be able to do it, and I'm 58 years old, and I'm only in reasonable shape. I'm not like a super athlete. So for the most part, we just do hiking, biking, paddling, nothing too crazy or too adrenaline kind of a stuff.
Yeah.
So I bet you also have some pretty interesting, weird stories of just like freaky things. Can you tell us one of those? And then we'll get into some of the nitty gritty.
Okay. We've had 3 broken penises.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I'll explain this. All right, just stick with me, okay? Where your tongue joins the bottom of your mouth, there's that little bit of skin there, that sort of, that's a frenulum, all right? Men have got 2.
Yes.
The other one's down there. If you tear that, it bleeds a lot. And there is an operation that you need to reattach it. It's called a frenulectomy.
I see.
And we've had that come up 3 times. People have been away on holiday and they've been having some wee time with their partner and something's happened and it's got torn.
That's a different kind of adventure than what we cover on this show, however.
Yeah.
So, okay.
We've got another one for you.
Okay, yeah, let's hear it.
A few years ago, there was a customer traveling in India and noticed he'd had an insect bite. And it was getting, kind of itchy and whatever. And then he noticed that it was actually moving underneath there. Something had laid its eggs under his skin. So he went to the doctor and the doctor said, go buy a piece of meat and strap it to your leg because the larvae inside, the maggots inside, will be attracted to the raw meat on the outside, not the inside. And they did. They all left his leg and went into the meat and he threw it away. We paid for the doctor's appointment, but he had to buy the piece of meat himself.
Well, that one seems like you came out pretty good on that one. So let's talk a little bit about why should people buy travel insurance? Just like a brief thing, because I'm going to ask you some more detailed question, but just kind of give us a synopsis of what should be going through our heads when we say, oh, we've got this great trip. Why should we cough up a little extra money?
Because there are always unexpected things that happen that mean that you're not able to go on the trip or continue the trip or have to end it early. And these are things that people are just not planning for. I mean, who would know a volcano would go off in Iceland and ground all flights in Europe? Who would know that, you're going to get hit by a BMO when you're crossing the road in Indonesia? Who would know if a close family member is going to be suddenly very ill, which means you have to stay home? These things you can't plan for. You don't know. They are unforeseen. And this is what travel insurance is there for, to make sure that you don't end up out of pocket. And don't forget, and travel insurance, it's insurance. It's not compensation. So it's going to make sure that you end up financially where you were if that thing had not happened. But it's not going to compensate you for a bad experience.
Right. And actually, the reason that you just brought up about the loved one or something, that's the main reason that I started buying travel insurance is I have elderly parents. Now it's just an elderly mother. But at 93 and a half years old, I know that I might get the call one day. I travel so much that I need to go home instantly. And they stick it to you with the airfares. And some of the tours I do are extraordinarily expensive. And I just don't want to be out that much cash.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, very sensible. Well done.
So let's talk about, that's one of the key things that most policies cover, and that's trip cancellation. So I'm going to ask you about a couple of different things that I know of about trip cancellation. If you can tell me a little bit about what are the kinds of things we need to be looking at, one of which is like natural disasters. You talked about the Iceland and weather things. Like, who decides how bad is a disaster and how does all that work?
Well, it varies a little bit. I mean, it's pretty obvious with a volcano because when it goes bang, that's it, An earthquake, same thing. But a natural disaster, if you check out like the State Department's travel section, they will put up warnings about when things, when they advise you not to travel to a destination. That's a big key factor. The British Foreign Office also do those warnings, as does the Australian Foreign Office, DFAT. So we kind of take, that is, the Bible, basically. If they say to their citizens, don't go here, then you can't travel against the advice of your government. Each case is judged on its merits as well. We have underwriting teams everywhere, and they will look at events and they'll go, well, this has happened. How is that going to impact our travellers? And so they will, we're constantly monitoring things that happen around the world. But basically, if it works this way, if there's been, some sort of incident in the place that you're going, if the planes are still flying there, if the hotel's still open and, the roads are still open, you're going. But if any of those things are not happening, like you can't get to it, the road's blocked, the hotel has been forced to close, the tour has had to be cancelled because of this incident, or, there's no flights going in and out of the destination, then that's the test.
All right, let's take that a step further with terrorism, which is unfortunately something we have to deal with these days. At the State Department, let's say I'm actually this fall going to several places that are a level 2, which it's advised a little bit more caution than the level 1. If the State Department moves that to a level 3, does that kick in the insurance? Because now it's more advisedly not to go.
What does level 3 say?
So I think it's 4 levels. So level 3 is saying, not a good idea. Like Nicaragua right now is a level 3, and that they're almost in civil war.
Yeah, no, you're good for level 3. But, don't go near any of the protests in the streets of Managua. But, if there's no advice, no level 4 advice, then you can, the travel insurance has not yet been cut off.
And then now on the death or serious illness of a loved one, what are the parameters? Who defines loved one?
Look, it is actually defined in the policy wording in the PDS. So, yeah, somebody asked us, but we did get a question. Somebody said, my dog died. Does that count as a close family member? We're really sorry, and we understand how you feel about your dog, but no. Yeah, it's generally siblings, parents, in-laws, but it probably wouldn't extend to cousins. But again, every case is judged on its merits. I mean, if you're sharing your life and you're living in the same house as a cousin and it's a cousin that dies, then we'll assess that.
Okay, that actually sounds pretty fairer than I would have thought. How about, and then sometimes there's coverage for layoffs if you get laid off and now all of a sudden cash could be a problem. Is that typical, or is that something you need to look for? Look,
it does happen. One of the other provisos we've got in policies for US citizens is if you get called up for military service, or you get called up for jury duty, or if the business that you work for goes into liquidation, goes bankrupt, and you're required to be there to help clean up and things like that. So there's a lot of reasons why you can cancel around those sorts of areas.
Yeah, it sounds like you're actually using some judgment calls, which is nice, because it sounds like some of the things are above and beyond what you read in the actual policy, because I've looked at the website kind of extensively. So we've talked about the weather. And then also, if you miss a flight or a connection through no fault of your own, how's all that work?
Okay, this is complicated. Which lots of us do because, we like to book our own trips and our own flights. If you book a flight from destination to destination B stopover with the intention of going to destination C, and you book airline number 1 for A and B, but you book airline number 2 for B and C, and you miss the connection, that's your fault. That's your problem. You didn't allow enough time to be able to make the connection. Whereas if you had booked from A to B to C with airline one the whole way through, it's their responsibility to get you to C. So if you're held up or delayed or you miss your connection in destination B, they will sort it out for you and they will put you on the next flight. But in the first scenario where you've got two different airlines, as far as airline two is concerned, when you just don't show up, they don't know where you've come from. They don't know you've got a connecting flight. You just haven't showed up. And airline one has, when they eventually get you to destination B, they fulfilled their commitment to you. So it's your fault for not allowing enough time to make the connection in between. So don't leave it a couple of hours. If it's really important, do a stopover. Have a day in destination B.
Yeah, that's actually happened to me and it was not covered. So I get that one now.
We all book our own cheap flights and we like to make it up ourselves. Well, I get that, but just have to be aware that you leave enough time.
Right, right. Now, what about the lost or delayed luggage? How's all that work?
You obviously have got to report it as soon as you can at the airport. Always keep those baggage tickets. They stick on the back of your boarding pass. Varies from, because I take it you've got not just Americans listening and maybe some British people listening.
No, actually we're international. We have over 100 countries.
We've got like 13 different policies that cover people from around the world, and the wording, unfortunately, is slightly different in them all. So generally, though, if your luggage is delayed for more than 12 hours, in some cases it's only 6 hours, but say 12 hours, check the policy wording, you can then go and spend and get some essentials to make it up. That might mean that you need to go get some new underwear, you need some toothpaste, you need, some pajamas, you may be in a cold climate and you need a new jacket or something like that. You're entitled to go and get those up to a certain amount, which I think is around about $250 a day. And you can claim that back. Now, if it's gone for more than 24 hours, I think it's 24 hours, if it's that, and then it's considered completely lost, then it's basically as if it's been stolen and we'll pay out the maximum benefit that we've got for your luggage.
Okay. Now let's switch gears to something that can be really, really expensive, and that's medical. So let's talk a little bit about if somebody's got a pre-existing condition. For example, a lot of our listeners are over a certain age, over 60, a lot of people that we interview here, and they may have diabetes or they may have some heart conditions. How does all that work?
Again, like I said, 13 different policies and like different wordings and what have you. So check the policy, the World No-Meds policy for your country of residence. But there are some of those conditions which we do cover. But if it's not on the list of things we do cover, then we don't. And if you are traveling and something happens that is related to that condition, it won't be covered. So we're not necessarily the right policy for you, because not all policies are everything to everyone. So the reason you should read the policy wording is to make sure that it's right for your circumstances. So if you have a pre-existing medical condition, you may need to go and choose a different provider who does, and there are providers who have screening processes and they will say, yeah, we'll cover you for that for an extra premium, or no, we're not going to cover you for that, but we'll cover you for this, whatever. We're not one of those, because that just adds a layer of complication and slows things down. We are a different type of travel insurance and we might not be right for you.
Okay. Now, would that be something, do you know if going to like insuremytrip.com would be a good resource to do that?
Sure. Yep. I know of the brand in Australia that has a screening process, but I'm not aware of, I don't know.
I used them before I switched to you, but I don't remember them ever asking me about any pre-existing conditions. So I guess the bottom line is to read your policy and check while you still have the grace period. That's going to be the only time you can get your money back if it turns out you inadvertently bought a policy that's not suitable for you. How about if you have an accident or a sudden illness, or you eat something, ooh, boy, you got sick. What do you do then? And what kinds of things are covered there?
Your medical bills. So if you're overseas and you are ill, look, if it's a minor complaint, find the nearest clinic and get the medicines that you need and what have you, and keep the bill that you get from the clinic and then submit that and you'll be reimbursed. If it's a major incident and you're admitted to a hospital, sadly, when you're admitted to the emergency department, as soon as they've stabilised you to make sure you're not going to die and they've stemmed the bleeding, one of the next people you will see will be somebody from the front office with a clipboard, and they're going to be asking you how you're going to pay for this treatment. I'm serious. The person with the clipboard turns up. And that's when you go, here's my World Nomads policy number, give them a call. And they will call our emergency assistance teams, and we will swing into action then. Our in-house medical teams will liaise with the people treating you to make sure you're getting the best possible treatment. We will assess the hospital that you're in and decide if there's actually a better one nearby, and if it's possible, medically advised to move you to get the better quality care. And we will pay the bills up front so you can concentrate on getting well rather than having to find your credit card in your wallet.
Right. Now, when my girlfriend, Mickey, we were in Tanzania and she had a really bad fall and they wanted to fly her to Kenya. She chose not to. Would that have been something when the locals are even saying, you shouldn't get that treated here. You better go, to the next country. You get better treatment.
Is she a doctor?
She's not. The doctors were saying.
Exactly. Is she a doctor? No.
Well, because she's stubborn. The story ended well, but if everybody's saying, because a lot of places we go to or I go to may be a little dicey when it comes to the medical scene there.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Call our emergency assistance team. And look, it shouldn't be called an emergency. It's a customer assistance team, a traveller assistance team, really. Like, give them a call and say, look, this has happened. I've had a fall. The locals here are saying, don't get this treated here. Go to Kenya. What do you advise? We will, you'll probably end up speaking to our in-house nurse or our in-house doctor who will make the best assessment they can over the phone. And then if it's decided that, we can't tell from here, whatever, and you do need better treatment, so it will get arranged and we'll get you somewhere where you're going to get quality care. And I got to say, if the locals are saying don't do it here, they would know.
You hear that, Mickey? It's so hard because you're so excited to go on your trip, and we were walking to breakfast the morning of our safari, and she just does this face plant, just smushed her face in, and she's just. And she's also, befuddled and, it wasn't what you're expecting that day. And, surprises happen. And she was just she was shook up and stubborn. She's like, no, I'll just go ahead and stitch me up here. Right?
Okay.
So whatever. Like I said, it ended up working out fine, but it was a little traumatic morning.
She's pretty tough then, right?
Yeah, she's very tough. She's a very tough lady. So she's pretty cool. So all right. So now let's say, is there any kind of coverage amounts we should ask for, or is this something that you have a choice on, or how does all that work, and any recommendations there?
Okay. In Australia, the United Kingdom, we're kind of used to travel insurance being the way it is through World Nomads, but Americans are kind of used to a different type of insurance where this is the value, this is the cost of my trip, this is the value of my trip, and then you get charged a certain percentage of that cost as your premium. It doesn't work that way with World Nomads. What determines the cost of your premium here is the maximum benefits payable. So, there is a limit of, say, $1,500 on lost luggage. So that's the maximum benefit that you can claim. And then you go across all the other benefits against which you can claim. That determines what the premium will be. So if you're going on a $500,000 trip to Tanzania, your insurance premium determined by the maximum benefit available will be, say, I don't know what it is, I'm making this up, maybe, $150. If you're going on a $50,000 trip to Tanzania, it will still be $150 because of the maximum defined benefit that's payable. So you won't pay any more if you're going on a luxury trip as if you're going backpacking somewhere. It's the same because it's defined by the maximum benefit possible.
Okay, so it looks like we need to look at the policy to see what the coverage limits are, and if we see that there's a huge gap between what the coverage limits are versus our trip, and most of our trips aren't anywhere near those kinds of things. I've looked at your policies. Everything that I've covered so far, for the most part, outside of maybe Kili, would fall within those ranges. But if you're doing some extraordinary luxury trip, you need to check that closely before you buy. Did I get that right?
Generally, the thing that happens most often is people have got really super duper expensive camera equipment, and the maximum benefit for losing a camera is not going to replace it. You might have a $5,000 camera and it's not going to be covered by our benefit limit. But in that case, people who've got big cameras like that generally are a part of some sort of professional association or semi-professional association, and, or photography club or something like that. And those clubs generally will have insurance policies for their members to cover their equipment. So you make sure that your camera equipment is covered in some other way. The World Nomads policy has got that equipment benefit level, and if that's not sufficient, then, you should look at getting additional insurance to cover a specific item.
And U.S. citizens at least should check their homeowner's policy, because sometimes, particularly if you have a rider, you may have coverage there.
Oh, totally. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, a lot of home policies will cover things like laptops and cameras when you take them out of the house. And they often have higher benefit limits than we do at World Nomads. So, you are walking to breakfast in Tanzania and you fall and split your face open, but also smash your camera. We will do the medical stuff, but don't claim the camera from the camera damage with us. Claim the camera damage with your other insurer.
And when you buy something expensive, make a copy of the receipt, because a lot of times your credit card company will offer some insurance because they figure we're going to forget all about it. So that's another little hidden insurance benefit that you may have and not even realize you have. Now, also it gets a little bit confusing with the insurance, with the Schengen travel insurance in Europe. And could you explain a little bit about that? That whole thing was kind of new to me anyway.
You know the ESTA that you need to get into America, which is you have to apply for clearance for visa-free entry. It's kind of like a visa to say you don't need a visa, right? That's what's going to happen in Europe as well. You're going to need to apply so that they can screen you beforehand to say that you're eligible for visa-free entry. That's all that is.
I thought there's a requirement for travel insurance with that now too.
There's probably a requirement for medical insurance, so your travel insurance will cover that.
Oh, okay. That's probably what they're going after. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, because I understood that you had to show some kind of proof of insurance.
You've already got travel insurance, which includes medical. You see, if you've only taken out trip insurance, so you've only covered, the flight, that doesn't include medical, which is why travel insurance is as an all-encompassing trip insurance, medical insurance, evacuation insurance, as a combined product. That's why that's better to have. Because as you say, and you're going to have travel insurance anyway.
Right. And then also I read too that sometimes some travel agencies and cruise lines and all that, they'll push travel protection, which is quite different from travel insurance. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, that's like the trip protection. So what they're doing there is they are selling a product, and you can buy it at a kiosk at airports in the United States. You are buying insurance against the cost of that travel ticket. So it doesn't cover anything else. It doesn't cover your medical costs. It probably doesn't cover loss of your baggage and what have you. But if the flight is delayed or the flight is cancelled, then you can make a claim for insurance, a kind of a compensation thing there to cover your costs that you've lost. So it only covers one thing. And they're making around about, I would suggest, I don't know for sure, but I reckon they're making about 50% commission on that insurance that they sell you.
Yeah, that's about what I read too. So, yeah, so it's not necessarily a good value. And people are getting confused between protection and insurance, or what they have in their mind of what they're buying.
Correct. And they're playing on that. They're using the word protection for that reason.
Is there any tips you can give us about how to not only just evaluate an insurance policy, but also the company behind it? Because there's, everybody's heard of the nightmares. Oh, I bought insurance and they didn't pay anything and blah, blah, blah. How we evaluate looking at a company?
Social media is really great for that. Go onto the company's website, find their Facebook site, see what people are saying. Go on other travel forums, see what people are saying it as well. Because, Reddit is a great place to find information like that as well. It is such a heavily regulated industry worldwide that there are no dodgy operators. You're not going to buy insurance and it's not properly backed. It just doesn't happen. So you're pretty safe with going whomever you choose with the product that they are offering, which is right for your circumstances. It's very, very, you're just not going to find an insurance company that goes bankrupt. But their processes for handling claims about whether they're good at that or not will be very, very clear on social media. But don't forget as well, lots of people get very upset on social media and go, oh, I paid all this money and they won't pay my claim. There's not an entitlement to be paid for something. You actually have to play by the rules. And in lots of cases, people, have done things which are not covered. We had a case recently where a customer was upset. They got altitude sickness whilst they were in Nepal, and they were at 4,900 metres, but they had purchased a policy that only covers up to 4,600 metres. And they were going, oh, it's only 300 metres. And going, yeah, but, that's what the policy wording said. That's the one you chose. But then you've done something different. You've decided, maybe you originally planned not to go above that altitude, but then suddenly you've found a reason to. You could have called us up and upgraded your policy to get covered, but you didn't. So now you're saying, oh, it's not fair that you've rejected my claim. We ended up paying, by the way, because, it is only 300 metres. So, but a lot of the complaints that you get, they won't pay my claim. It's because you don't qualify to get it paid.
Right. And then that brings up the other thing, too, is a lot of times people are mad because they might have done something negligent or they might have been under the influence. Or can you talk a little bit about that and maybe give some stories about that?
Yeah, sure. Here's an example for you. For Australian customers who go to Bali a lot, it's a great destination. We go there a lot. It's very close by. It's like our Cancun, basically. 60% of the claims that are made related to motorcycle injuries out of Bali, we reject because they are not licensed to ride, they're not wearing a helmet, or they're under the influence, or what we call the unhappy trifecta, all three. Drunk, no license, no helmet. And they, crash and fall off and make a claim. Sorry, not happening. So we reject 60% of those requests.
I like beer. So if I have one beer and something happens to me, I'm not covered, or do you have to have a certain limit, or is there a formula that you use?
Yeah, every case is judged on its merits. Somebody will assess your claim and they will make investigations and they will get the toxicology report from the hospital where you're admitted, and we'll find out how much alcohol was in your system. And then they will make a person will make a decision on whether your state of intoxication may have contributed to what happened to you. So there's no hard and fast rule because common sense prevails. And I know people will find this hard to believe, but it is true. If we get somebody, and, these are people that we care about. These are our customers. These are these are nomads. We want them to travel. We will look and go, well, under this part of the policy, we wouldn't pay that claim. But there's a contradictory part of the policy over here that says we are able to pay it. You know what? Let's use that one and pay the claim. And as long as you can justify that, then we can look after you, and we don't want to strand people in hospitals with huge bills. If there's some way that we can find that's going to pay it, then we will do that. So a person is making that assessment on your claim. So, we try to put as much humanity into that as we possibly can. But if you're over 0.05 or 0.08 or whatever the legal blood alcohol limit is in the place where you have the accident, then it's very likely that it's going to be, a contributing factor. But look, if you've had one drink and you're sensibly walking back to your accommodation rather than riding a motor scooter, and a vehicle careens off the road and hits you, you could be as drunk as a skunk. But as long as, because that was somebody else's fault, you did not contribute to what happened to you. So it's interesting as well, by the way, because we were looking at this now that they've legalized cannabis in Canada. And it's like, how do we treat that? And there is such a, people do go to destinations because cannabis is legal or at least dispensed in places in the United States. And the same thing applies. But in Canada, the government has said, if you are intoxicated, if you are under the influence and you have a traffic accident, then you will be charged. So the Canadian government advises don't smoke and drive at all. And we would be kind of following that advice as well. So that's the rule set up there. But, it's really easy to determine what your blood alcohol level is, but I'm not quite sure how it is to determine how intoxicated you are by cannabis. So go easy.
And then also, if somebody, as we do a lot of hiking on this program, if somebody climbs to the top of the mountain, they're just too tired to come down, you don't send a helicopter for them, do you?
Nope.
That's their problem, right?
No.
Have people tried?
Sure. We've got a massive problem with that in Nepal at the moment because there are lots of helicopters operating there and a lot of very tired and grumpy and sore people at the tops of treks who can't face another 4 days trekking back. And it is a problem. And if they are claiming to have symptoms of altitude sickness, then our first priority is to look after their welfare. So, they will get medically evacuated. And it's a problem. If you're at the top of a mountain and you haven't planned well enough, it depends. What will happen is night will fall, a blizzard will come, the local alpine rescue team will be swung into action and they will come and get you off the mountain and put you in a hospital. Then that's where your travel insurance takes over and we start paying your medical bills and we're cancelled and missed trips and all that sort of stuff. So, no, there is no helicopter with the World Nomads, our little symbol, Sanchez, the little sort of Inca man. There's no helicopter with Sanchez emblazoned on it that will come and get you. Sorry.
I definitely get that. You've got so many people that are heading to Nepal. They're not doing their training. They have no altitude prep at all. And then they just want to be able to show on Instagram that they did this or they did that. So, no, I totally get that. You shouldn't have to pay for somebody arriving woefully unprepared. Why
would you put yourself in that position in the first place? I mean, it's like airbags in cars, right? So people go, I've got an airbag, so they stop wearing their seatbelt. Why would you put yourself in the position where you haven't planned appropriately, where you may find yourself too tired to get back down where you've gone? Why would you do that to yourself?
Well, they may not have the experience to know.
Yeah, maybe.
I think with Instagram and, I got another question coming up about that. They see people doing all these things and they want to do it. And they may, I heard of somebody thought she was going to do the Appalachian Trail pushing a shopping cart. I was like, has she done any homework whatsoever before she started out?
Well, here's another rule about travel insurance, all right? We don't cover stupidity. Seriously, if you're doing a really dumb thing, we don't cover that.
Got it. All right. What about people that are not traveling so specific with specific dates? And this is a very personal question because I got a really complicated project this fall that I'm going to multiple destinations over the course of several months with time in between that I haven't booked the flights yet. I booked the tours. I booked the conferences. So combined, it's too much. So do I do an individual policy or do I do chunks of policies or how do I do something like that? And what do you do with people that are just traveling nomadically and don't really know where they're going to be? Is there annual policy or chunk policies or what do we do?
Well, you can get a policy that covers you for the worldwide. So let me get this straight. So you're going away and then you're coming back at an indeterminate time at the end of all of this. You're not coming back home in between?
Correct.
Buy a policy right now because you've already outlaid money on tours and what have you. Get a policy now that covers the dates that you're going to go. And if you don't think you're ever going to come back, then get worldwide for up to 6 months now. Federal regulations when you can't do more than 6 months at a time. But you can renew your World Nomads policy while you're on the road. So you just get online and extend it. And if you've got worldwide, then you can go anywhere that you like. But if you know you're going to a specific region, you can get a policy for Asia. You can get a policy for South America out of World Nomads. So it doesn't really matter where you go within that region.
How about some credit cards brag that they offer travel insurance? Can you talk about that?
Yeah, sure. And they do. And the policies are generally underwritten by the same people who are underwriting, specific providers. But you, again, have to read the policy wording to see what they cover. They often have a higher deductible than a standalone travel insurance provider. And there may be criteria around how it's activated. Do you have to tell them beforehand? Do you have to have paid all of your trip, a portion of your trip, or paid for on the credit card? So make sure you know how it's activated. Then check who the emergency assistance company is that they're using, because it's not, somebody in your bank who's going to help you when you're in trouble. They've got service providers. Find out who they are, and you can make an assessment of those as well. And the other thing is, what is the emergency assistance number that comes with your credit card insurance? You have to dig around pretty hard to find that sort of information. And the other thing is, you don't know exactly how much you pay for that. They go, it's complimentary, it's included in your credit card, but they don't tell you how much that travel insurance policy is actually costing you. You go to World Nomads, you are paying $108 for that policy, but you get this complimentary, not free, but complimentary travel insurance. And they're stinging you for it. It's all the charges that you're paying for that. So it's actually not very good value either. And just on a personal level, if you're, if you've just face planted in Tanzania, are you really going to call your bank to look after you? Why wouldn't, let's get a specialized travel insurance provider to run it for you. I don't know. Look, it's there, and if it suits you, again, like I said, world nomads policies are not going to be perfect for everybody. Maybe the one that comes with your credit card is perfect for you. Then go for it.
What about sometimes our car insurance here in the States covers, at least in the United States, I can't remember overseas. If I rent a car, I'm covered on that. Does that translate in travel insurance when you're traveling outside of the area, or can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, you're so unsure about it. I'm pretty sure everybody else is. Does my American car insurance cover me for that excess damage waiver, I think they call it?
Does my car coverage, if it says it does that cover a scooter in Vietnam, for example? I have no clue. Phil and I went back and forth on this auto insurance and what's covered and what's not covered. And I edited out all that junk because the bottom line is you need to check with your auto policy here at home first and see what is covered there. And if it doesn't cover you where you're going, you're going to need to buy whatever the insurance is at the place that you're going with, whatever the vehicle is, whether it's a scooter or a car, whatever. And the key thing is you got to make sure that you have a valid driver's license for the location that you're going to be in, and that might require having an international driver's license. You have to wear the helmet or follow whatever the rules of the roads are in that country, and you can't be breaking any rules, which means you can't be under the influence, and you got to be following the law. So your travel insurance basically will cover the medical problems if you have an accident, and assuming that you are following the rules, but it will not cover the auto vehicle damages. That's what your auto policy needs to cover. And if you don't have an auto policy, you need to buy one from the company you're renting from. So that's the bottom line. And some policies may cover your deductible on an auto accident, but not the actual accident. So I cannot emphasize more clearly, you need to read the policy. You get a grace period after you buy the policy. You download the policy, you actually read it and see, is this a suitable policy for you? And are you willing to take the risks that are not covered? Your policy will spell out in black and white what is and what is not covered, and you cannot expect them to make exceptions. That's just the way it is. Okay, so let's switch gears here and let's talk about stolen baggage.
The biggest problem we have, and it's a little unfair, is what's considered to be unaccompanied baggage. If you are not paying proper attention to your belongings and they get stolen, the loss may not be covered. And sometimes that gets down to, I just put it on the table and I turned around for 1 second. And it's like, yeah, well, that was unattended baggage. As opposed to, I left it over there and walked away to another shop and came back, which is quite obvious. So sometimes it can sound really unfair about the way it is treated. So please look after your belongings. Don't put your cell phone down on a table and turn around just for a second, because in some places that we travel to, they can be sold on the black market for a month's worth of wages for somebody local. So look after your belongings. Don't leave them unattended, and don't be surprised if you do and your claim is questioned.
Let's talk about theft. You're walking through the markets and somebody snatches your purse. So you had it on under your arm. They still grabbed it, or they cut the strap and ran off with that.
Yep.
Is that covered?
Yeah, it happens all the time. Happened just recently, actually. A friend of mine works for a big international airline, and they have had 2 or 3 of their cabin staff have had their handbags snatched by motorcycle thieves. They ride by and just pull them off. There's an Australian woman who died because of that about 3 or 4 years ago. So, look, if you're injured in that, yes. If the bag has got valuables in it, and it will often have things like your passport in it, then the cost of, replacing those items will be covered. That is absolutely theft, loss of baggage. Yes, it's covered. Plus, you may have been injured as well, so we cover your medical bills.
And so what kind of proof do we have to present to you? It's something like that. I mean, I don't take a picture of what's in my purse. How do we have to show you that we've actually had a loss?
Well, it's pretty obvious with the passport. I don't have it. I can't leave the country. I need to go and get a new one. If it's something, like a camera or something like that, and you should do this with all of your possessions that you take away. Nobody keeps the receipts when they bought stuff. Maybe you've had your camera for 5 years and you don't know where that receipt's gone and what have you. But to prevent fraud, we're going to need some sort of proof that you owned it in the first place and some sort of proof that it actually was stolen from you. So the proof that you had it in the first place, if you've got the receipt, great. Nobody does, but if you're the one person that does, that's awesome. You're home and hose. Write down the serial number. Do you still have the instruction booklet, the manual that came with it, or something that proves that you had it? And we will even consider, and this is a really good tip, all right, the day before you go away and you've packed your luggage, you've packed your bag, unpack it, lay it out on the floor, put today's newspaper next to it and take a photograph. Store that in the cloud somewhere. It's not rock solid proof, but it goes a long way for, that person, that human person who's assessing your claim will go, yeah, you're a pretty careful sort of person. You were trying to do the right thing there. And write down the serial numbers of the devices that you're taking away before you go. Cash, if you've lost cash in there, we only cover a small amount of stolen cash. It's really hard to say whether, you can't trace cash. And proving that it actually happened, that the item actually happened to you, we need you to get a police report within 24 hours. And no, so if you're in, up the Amazon somewhere and there are no police around to make a report to, as soon as you get back to somewhere where there are police, within 24 hours, go and make a report to police. Sometimes that's really difficult. They're just not interested. It's extra paperwork for them. But insist you need some kind of police report. And sometimes those reports they haven't done any investigation. They just say, yes, this person came to our station and reported that they had lost some goods. But that's what you need. If you lose it whilst you're on, some sort of transport, an airplane or a truck or, a bus or something, contact the carrier, like in their lost property department, and then get something in writing from them that says that you approach them and said, this is missing. Do you have it? Can you help me? So get as much paperwork that you can that it was actually did go missing. And when you think about it, it's like if we didn't do all that, you could go away on your trip and go, oh, my Nikon camera, it's got stolen. Can I have a new one, please, for $1,500? And it's like, yeah, sure, there you go. And then everybody's insurance premiums would go up.
Makes sense. It makes sense. I mean, it's got to be fair for both sides.
Yeah, it's got to be fair. Yeah, and it's got to be fair for everybody. If we didn't ask for those things that prove it existed and prove that it was stolen, then everybody's premiums would go sky high because they would just be constantly being scammed.
Gotcha. How about finishing up with a couple more fun stories for us?
Here's something fun about World Nomads that differentiates us from other travel insurance providers. We provide scholarships for aspiring writers, photographers, and filmmakers. And you will get a money can't buy trip with a mentor to help you hone your skills. We've been running these for a dozen years now. We, run 3 a year, and we counted up the number of entries that we've had in all that time, and it's close to 80,000 people have interacted with us by sharing their stories, by sharing their photographs, or sharing the films that they've made whilst they're traveling. And some of the stuff that we get from people is just outstanding. It's just amazing. It's such an inspiration to see how other people travel and the things that they've seen and the people that they've met. And I don't know another travel insurance company that does that. I'm not sure if you're aware of the Golden Circle and Simon Sinek and talking about the power of why, but it's quite famous in marketing circles. But he says, and he's absolutely right about this, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And why we do what we do at World Nomads is because we love travel as much as you do. We're all travelers ourselves, and we want other people to be able to enjoy travel as much as we have, because travel is a force for change. It's a positive force for change in the world. And so that's why we do what we do. And we just happen to sell travel insurance to help us do it as well.
Perfect. Well, Phil, if people want to follow you or World Nomads, can you tell us a little bit about how people can reach out to you guys?
Hey, you know what? We've got a podcast too.
I know. Tell us about it.
The World Nomads podcast. If you haven't had enough of my voice today on this program, you can go and get more of me with my co-host Kim Napier over on the World Nomads podcast. And worldnomads.com, you will find our page there, and right across the top is our navigation bar. You can buy insurance there. You can go and read some amazing travel stories. You can go and get some tips for traveling to destinations. You can get safety tips. You can join and enter our scholarships. You can join a community of people who all believe in independent, adventure-minded travel. Worldnomads.com.
However, I would like to add, since you are an affiliate partner with this company, if you would please use my link to go there, you will be helping to support the show. I would appreciate that, guys.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, that's an amazing thing. We encourage people to do that because that's another way that we help the travel community by helping people like yourself, Kit. Like if we can help you make a travel lifestyle, you're going to travel more and you're going to inspire others. So, yeah, absolutely. Go through Kit's site before you visit us, and we're very happy for that.
Sounds great. Well, Phil, thanks so much for coming on the program. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. I'm going to go get my daughter off to school now.
I don't know about you, but I sure learned a lot from Phil today. Travel insurance is something I always buy, but I never really paid too much attention to it. I know I never read the policy. So I learned an awful lot today about what is covered and the kinds of things that aren't. And I learned a lot of things that I thought would be covered, would not be. So I'll be a little bit smarter when I do things. I love the tip of taking the photographs ahead of time and putting the serial number. In fact, I think I'm going to take his idea, write down the serial number and put a little piece of paper next to the thing on the photograph. So I have it all with me up in the cloud should anything unforeseen happen. I know I always recommend people just to take a photo of their passport to have that up in the cloud. I email that to myself so I can always access that. And I also keep a copy in my other bags so that way I have that accessible as well. Anyway, I hope you got a lot of information from Phil today. I think it gives us a lot to chew on. And if we take away nothing else, read your policy. You get a grace period when you buy it online. So take that time to actually look through it so you understand what you're buying to make sure you bought the policy that's appropriate for your trip. There's nothing worse. Well, there's lots of things worse, but it's heartbreaking if you think you've done it right and you go and you buy the policy and then something bad happens or unforeseen happens that messes up your trip or your health, and then you find out you're not covered. I mean, what a downer. I mean, you don't want that to happen. So take the time to read the policy. If you are ready to buy travel insurance, I would sure appreciate you using my links on my website. It does help support the program at no additional cost to you. I do earn a small commission, and that helps keep the lights on and keep this podcast going. It's a great no-cost way to support Active Travel Adventures podcast. I sure appreciate it. And I always love your feedback. You can reach me at kit@activetraveladventures.com. I love getting your emails, so write me and tell me what you're up to. I look forward to being with you soon. Until then, thanks for listening. This is Kit Parks. Adventure on.